Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, and it is now a course at NYU and an elective towards the journalism certificate. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, and today I'm so happy to have Abigail Thomas back. Abby, to me, she's a dear friend, and I'm so happy to have her talking about Still Life at 80, the next interesting thing, which now Scribner has taken it over. She has reviews coming up the wazoo, including from People magazine. And I'm so happy for her. If you've been living under a rock, let me just tell you a little bit who Abigail Thomas is. She has 4 kids, 12 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, 11 books, and a high school education. She taught for 9 years in the MFA program at the New School and has been giving workshops since the late 1980s. Among her memoirs are Safekeeping, A 3-Dog Life, What Comes Next, and How to Like It. Her newest, Still Life at 80, she is 83 and proud of it. Her Substack account is called What Comes Next, Abigail Thomas. And I will share all of that in the show notes. And everyone should be subscribing to Abby's Substack and reading her book. And we're going to talk all about it. And I just want to share that after Abby came on my podcast for the first time a couple of months ago, we become fast friends. And I think it's because we both share a beginner mindset and a creative way of looking at life. And I just adore our weekly conversations. She's such a wonderful person. I'm so happy to have her in my life and call her a good friend. And I'm so happy to be able to have this, I'm calling it Conversations with Abby.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm trying to quit smoking, so I may be a little stilted.
That's right. She's trying to quit smoking. And so we have to all think hard, and it's sort of like that magic moment in Peter Pan when everyone's thinking, I believe. Remember that with Tinkerbell?
Okay.
So, Abby, let's talk about Still Life at 80. And there are certain things that I want to really bring out. One is I love the word gravitas. It's really the weight of something, and you write about it in here. And can you talk a little bit about why you decided to use it? And also, I know you have a love of the dictionary, and if you could share a bit about that. And just to preface it, Abby and I were the closing session for a recent writers conference for ASJA. So it was wonderful to be doing that with her.
It was wonderful to be doing it with you.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. It comes from pregnant. Gravit is a word that meant pregnant. So there you are, heavy with possibility or something. But I remember when I first realized that I was actually old was when I was listening to the radio and it said something about snow coming, bad cold coming, most dangerous for children and the elderly. I thought, oh, I think I'm elderly. And I had previously thought of the elderly as somebody I might help across the street. But then I realized, no, it's pretty wonderful. I really love being old. It's so much easier and simpler than being young. But oh, I wouldn't be young again for anything. Things you used to care about, like what you look like, gone. I used to put lipstick on just to go out and buy toothpaste, gone.
Tell me about the dictionary. You love the dictionary.
I love the American Heritage Dictionary of Indo-European Roots, because if you look up a word, if you're stuck somewhere with your writing or just with your life, and you can think of half a dozen words that might be in your way, might stand for what's in your way, and you look them up, and if you're lucky, you find, like, for example, the word futility came from a word that originally meant a leaky vessel. Well, now that's just perfect, isn't it? Is that not a perfect poem?
Yes,
But
yes.
but you can almost tell, you can't do this all the time, but you can almost tell the history of the human race, or at least the Indo-European, whoever we are, by how a word has changed over the years. Because the word miracle came from a word that meant simply to smile. And the word happy, which we now think of something we can actually pursue, simply meant happen, good luck or bad luck. It didn't have any joyful meaning to it at all, but we've turned it into something that if we can spray it on or smear it on or fix our hair that way or buy these clothes or live, then we can be happy. And I like it so much better the other way, because you can't pursue happiness. Happiness comes in through the open window, and you notice something around your shoulders and you realize, oh, I'm happy. But it goes away and is replaced by things that are sometimes horrible and sometimes just interesting. But it's just it's a very interesting way to find out. I looked up acceptance once because I was feeling guilty about something. And acceptance came from a word that meant a thread used in weaving. And I realized that I was just weaving. You're supposed to be weaving. The thread may break or tear, but you have to keep on weaving. And that's acceptance. And it may mean that you've made a life that's making you happy out of a tragedy that was somebody else's, but you're supposed to keep on weaving. And that moment changed my life forever. That word changed my life forever.
That resonates so much for me for a different reason. You're going to find this funny. There is a TV show or a series, a movie called A Discovery of Witches, which is a fantastic fantasy. It's about witches and vampires, and it's really a great read. And I have to remember the author who wrote it, but she's fabulous. And Diana, the witch, is a weaver, and
Ah,
she's somebody that she can't do regular spells because other people have created them. She excels when she makes her own magic. She creates her
ah,
own spell. And that's what resonates with me. I'm better when I create my own magic, when I create my own forums, when I create,
and
you
you do.
Abby, can you read us the section about aging that you wrote that I really love because it talks about aging in a positive way, and we often don't see it that way. You know, we hear people fighting the good fight against aging. I mean, I'll be honest, I fight the good fight against aging.
Right. Well, once you get to my age, you will discover. You know you're old when you email a friend about a change in your blood pressure, because you know she will be just as interested as you are. When you check your watch to see how long you have to lie in bed until morning, when nothing embarrasses you. When you understand you're breakable by breaking, when you forget what you've forgotten. When at your yearly checkup, they ask you to count backward by sevens, 100, 93, 86. When you no longer drop everything to answer the phone just because it rings, when you don't wonder what you're missing, when you can't remember the last time you felt guilty, when you try to stop fixing people, when you find the moment roomy enough to live in, when you relish your own company, when you see a young woman with her whole life in front of her, and your first thought is, thank God that isn't me. 79, 72, 75, 58, but you wish her well.
And that is so you at the end, in that upbeat, but you wish her well. It's just, you admit it, you're older, but you're not bitter, you're
No, I'm
somebody.
old and I love it. I'm not even just older, I am old, although somebody told me about a friend of hers who was 89 and I was partly jealous and partly terrified.
But
89.
can
Wow.
we go back? Can we go back through the ages? I mean, I've seen pictures of you when you were younger, Abby. You were a heartbreaker.
I was good looking, yeah. But that's what's so nice not to be anymore because you're not self-conscious and you don't give a shit. You just go out looking however you look.
So let's go back. You did like the male gaze, if
Oh,
you,
honey, I lived for it. Are you kidding?
tell me
I
more. Tell me more.
lived for it. It was really fun. I remember we moved to New York City to Washington Square and walking up to school on Friend Seminary on 15th and something or other. And it was really fun. It was really fun to walk past the workmen who'd whistle and you just felt like $1,000,000, which was, of course, the wrong to think. There's more to life than being attractive, but it's really nice not to have that on my mind ever again.
So all right, what has filled that space that used to be filled by that? Like what's now filling it? I mean, you have family, you're close
My
with family.
my grown children, grown and growing grandchildren, and the two little great grandchildren, and whatever catches my eye, and writing. Writing is what I love to do. That's when you're your own best company, and you know that you're a writer. There's
Yeah,
just it's you write especially when you write memoir, you're writing for clarity, and clarity is comforting.
yeah.
Even the darkest things, if you bring them up to the light, it they don't have the power that they have when they're still in the dark. I don't know. I love to write.
One of the things you said, well, you said a couple of things. You said nothing embarrasses you.
No, I can actually write about not being able to make it from my bed to the bathroom and peeing before I get there and then buying Depends. I want to know who invented Depends because they should get I don't know what.
A royalty.
They should get this, yes.
Well,
They-
that's not just for being old. I mean, when you're pregnant, the same thing happens
No,
running
it
to
never
the
happened to me before, but my bedroom is very far away from the bathroom, so
Okay.
but not
So,
that far away.
so
Anyway,
in terms of embarrassing, so again, I have to go back because did you used to get embarrassed a lot? Like I have to say, I'm not your age yet, but I don't get easily
I'm
embarrassed. I
trying,
really don't. But did you?
I am now trying to remember if I'm sure I was embarrassed. I should look that up. Oh, I must have been embarrassed. No, well,
I mean, you were put in some subjugating positions, but that's not embarrassment unless a man kind of said, "Oh, you're not good at this," and then you were embarrassed by it. But was it your own embarrassment or was it other people's embarrassment of you that you were
oh,
feeling?
I remember one time when the woman who owned the literary agency where I worked went away for the summer. And I would call my sister Eliza in Boston because it was really kind of boring just sitting there by myself until Chuck joined. And she came back and she said, "Look at this phone bill. What did you, what?" And I was too embarrassed to say, "Oh my God, it was me calling my sister," although I did tell her the next day. That was embarrassing.
Okay. Because
That's the only.
were worried that she would think that you were taking advantage. Is
Well,
that
I
was
was. I just never gave it a second thought. I never gave it a sec. Oh, I remember once maybe I was 15 and we were a bunch of us were going to a dance and I put a whole lot of makeup on, thinking, oh my God, this is so cool. I mean, inches of it. And then when we got in the car, one of the boys whose name I have forgotten, Lige Lovejoy, said, look at the makeup on that girl. And that was embarrassing. But not like life-threateningly embarrassing. It was just, I realized, oh, I think I must have put on inches of shit all over my face. It's a good question because I guess I just think embarrassment is part of life. And I must have been embarrassed. The weird thing is I no longer feel guilty about anything. And I've got plenty of things to feel guilty about. But as you get older, so does guilt. Guilt sort of grows up and becomes regret. And
Oh,
regret urges you to do something about it. Not specifically, you don't have to say, I'm so sorry when I blah, 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 but just address it somehow, make amends somehow without anybody even knowing that's what you're doing. That's helpful.
I have a question for you. I don't think you per se address it in the book, and I don't even know if it's important to you. But how does ambition correlate with being old? Can you still be ambitious and
I
be old?
don't, I, I
I'm
really,
saying old because you say old. I don't think of you
no,
as
I
old.
like
I
old.
don't.
I like old. I I remember asking my dearest friend Chuck why we became friends so quickly. And he said, because neither of us have any ambition. And it was true. All I wanted to do was something I wasn't doing yet, which was writing. And I don't have any ambition about writing except writing each piece as well as I can and then getting out, you know. So I'm not I don't have ambition. I just really want to write and keep writing till I'm dead and be pleased with what I've done. That's all. I never have an audience in mind. I never think of what will so and so think of this. I just do what, and you do too. I mean, it's not a terrible thing to have ambition. I just don't have any.
I think I have ambition. I think I've always had ambition
You have
because
more energy than I do.
I'm a striver. I'm always like, what's the next exciting thing, you know? And
Yeah.
then what I do is I just take what I've learned and I bring it forward into the next thing I do. So I'm constantly giving back in a way, but I'm
You
also constantly moving forward in another way.
Yeah, I'm just grateful that I'm 83 and trying to stop smoking, and that gives me something new to write about. It's just because it's sort of ridiculous and funny, and it's also very difficult because I have no willpower. I can decide something, but I have absolutely no willpower. So
So what you did, like, okay, people during the pandemic, Abby, spun. I spun. I didn't know what was going on. The last thing I was doing was writing. I mean, I was trying to find connections and figuring out, I actually liked having my husband home, but a lot of people that broke up their relationship, but actually it made us stronger because I liked having him home. He was always so,
and you have a daughter and you teach at universities. You have lots of things you actually do.
yes.
During COVID, I just sat and wrote.
And commune with nature. You have nature.
Yes,
I've been to your home. You have nature all around you in the backyard and
yes, nice. And I have dogs. And
and
I
you,
have friends and I give a workshop on Mondays and I used to give one on Thursdays, but I stopped that one. So I've got stuff to do all the time and people would like me to read what they're writing and write something about it. I find I can't concentrate enough on anything except my own writing to finish a book, to even read more than a page of a book.
Well, what excites you now? Like when you get up? I mean, I know you love your dogs and your family and your writing, but are you, like for me, we're going to go somewhere during the holidays and I'm looking forward to it. I'm making plans. I'm seeing if I have friends in the area, although it's mainly family. But so that's exciting to me. But what excites you?
I'm excited when I'm in the middle of writing something and I wake up in gear. That's what excites me. And if I have a friend coming over for a day or two, that's really very nice. But honestly, it's turned into, I just love writing about what catches my eye and turning it into something that amuses me or that I feel good about. It's very simple. It's very simple. I
It's
do
very
have,
clean. It's not convoluted. It's like it's very clear, like
yeah,
very clear, I think.
yeah.
Were you always clear like you are?
No, I never was clear at all. I never had a single plan. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then I got pregnant in college and then that was what I did. No, I think I always wanted to write, but it took me a long time to realize you don't have to have deep thoughts and a fascinating life. And you just start with like a beginner. You're a beginner every time.
What grabs you by the throat and makes you know that you want to write about it?
I don't always know why. I mean, it could be, as I've written many times about bugs that are in my house where they don't belong and have something will grab me, and almost the less reason I can find for it, the more interested I become. Why on earth do I want to write about this? Why is this returning to my head? So it's kind of an adventure to see what it was about this particular moment or this particular whatever. That's the way the sunlight hits the wall. I never know what it's going to be. It's an adventure. It's exciting in a
And yet you didn't do it for most of your life until
no, I thought you had to be special. I thought you had to know shit I didn't know. I thought you had to be a sort of different person. And then I had sort of an adventure in New Hampshire I think I was 48 and he was 20. And we spent a week together in his pickup truck. That was really fun. When I went home, or as I was on going home, I remember thinking, we were in the White Mountains and his head was in my lap. And I was suddenly thought, it's like making your first pie crust. The first pie crust won't be good, but make 7 of them and maybe you'll have a pie. So when I went back, I saw something on a bus kiosk, which I don't think there are any anymore. Just get some writing done. And it was near where I lived. And I went to a workshop for the first time. You have to be able to live through writing badly to get to writing well. So I was very impatient. And if I wrote a paragraph and I didn't like it, I'd just throw it away. And who do you think you are? I'd think. But
so you gave yourself grace. You learned to give yourself grace. Was Chuck a big support for that? Was it his friendship that
Chuck was, yeah, especially when I actually began to write. And we were both agents in a different, not at Viking. We had both gotten jobs at Liz Darensaw's agency. And I began to write stories and he liked them. And I remember he said he'd been on the back porch reading my manuscript and he was laughing his head off. And his wife came out and said, I thought you were working, which is my favorite
was
line.
she ever threatened by you or no? She,
I don't think she liked me. I
oh,
think it's much harder when your husband has a friend, which is very different.
it's an emotional
But
connection,
it's different from sleeping with somebody because
right?
you sort of get that. But um, we just were very good friends for a very long time.
You were
Yeah,
kindred spirits and
we
all.
were, we were. I remember I was reading some old diary and he had said, trust binds us, because we really did, when we went through some hard times, but we really did trust each other.
Do you
And
feel him around you now? Do you feel him around there?
yeah, I do, because I've been writing about missing him and making stuff out. I mean, it's a book about everything, but it's, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to be a great one when you're ready to bake it.
Yeah. Every now and then I'll write something and then I can hear him say something. And I've decided when I hear him say something, I'm putting it in. There's Chuck again. I was writing about how if you're making things out of clay and you have a face, and how do you decide whether this is better as the clay color or should I paint it? And how does anybody make a decision? And then this voice in my head said, flip a coin. And that was Chuck. That was so perfectly Chuck. So I thought, well, every time I hear his voice, I'm going to put it in. So that's what I've been doing. It's
Oh,
not,
so it's like a framing device in a way?
I don't know what it is. It just occurred to me that I made a face that looked just like Keith Richards. And I said in the piece, I should roll him a cigarette. And I heard Chuck say, just one of yours.
Oh my gosh, I
I
love
can't,
it.
I can't make it up. And so it isn't everywhere. But when I know exactly what he would say or is saying,
Right.
I put it in.
What is your best advice that you would give to anybody who is trying to write their stories today? Because there's just so much noise, Abby. You know it's social media. I mean, you're off for now, Facebook, but just there's so much noise out there.
The less you know, the better, I think. I think, I think,
I say the
well,
opposite. I say information is power.
I know, but not necessarily when you're writing your own story. The only real rule is you have to tell the truth. And if there's something you don't want to write about and it's part of the story, you have to write about it. And you will find that the more vulnerable you let yourself be, the stronger you become. Because
Talk
you,
more about that. Explain more about that.
well, it's just true. I mean, if there are things that you're ashamed of, and you've got them down in the basement and you don't even want to look at them yourself or even admit that they're there, but they belong at a certain point somewhere in the story. You have to bring them up and hold them up to the light and look at them. And painful though it is, it's finite. Whatever it is, it has edges, it's finite. It is not the end of the world, never was the end of the world. And then you get it written as clearly. You're never be a victim and never be an angel, just be whoever it is you are. But once you've done that and people have read it, all I can say is the more vulnerable you make yourself, the stronger you become.
In writing or in
Oh, I
life?
think probably in life, but certainly in writing.
I think in relationship, you need to be vulnerable to
Oh, yeah,
achieve intimacy. But I'm
absolutely.
not walking around being vulnerable with the whole world because I don't know who that whole world is, right? I could be in Times Square and like saying my
No,
deepest, stuff. That wouldn't
it's
work.
pe- people who matter, people that
People
you
who matter. Yes.
matter to you for whatever reason. I've got to look up trust and I've never looked up trust. I don't know. I mean, if you were to say where should I begin? I always think starting in the middle is fun because then you can go backwards or you can go forwards or you can stay in the present.
Yeah. In
Um,
media res. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I had mentioned that in our ending keynote. We talked about different ways of getting into story, right? And so,
yeah,
yeah, that
that
was,
was that was great. That was great. But I think if I'd finished my freshman year of college, all those critics and all those things like narrative arc and denouement and those kinds of words. They're like great big no trespassing signs. And I think I'd have been shy of what Northrop Frye might have made of whatever it was I was trying to write. I only remember his name because Chuck gave me the book saying, it's not that complicated. And you do need to live. I mean, I know somebody who's 28 and writing a memoir. And what the fuck? What, you're, come on, honey. You haven't even been born yet.
Wow. I mean, maybe they've I don't know. I guess if the extreme part of their life started in childhood,
That's
then I
true.
would suppose they would think that,
But you do have to metabolize it, you know?
I agree. I mean, I'm working on memoir and I'm having revelations all the time. Some of them are very hard, to
Yeah.
deal with. And also you look at things that you wrote years ago and you're like, oh God, I wrote it that way. Like, how superficial was I? Do you
It was
think you're supposed to get deeper as you get older, or is there no
You
supposed?
just have more experience. I mean, I know when I was in high school, my only ambition was to be deep, whatever that meant. That was a big word back then in the 50s, being deep. And I just wasn't.
Wait, and I see you rolling up your sleeves and it's making me think about the tattoos you got. One when you were 60, right?
My lizard. And then one
Lizard,
you can't really see because it's just, I was too old to get it. But
FTS, which
yes,
stands.
which stands for fuck this shit, which was my motto. And now my motto is, oh, well.
Wait, so what did the lizard represent? That
I had been to Mexico. My workshop sent me to Mexico after my third husband got so badly hurt. And they were everywhere. There were just these gorgeous, and I had lizards in New Orleans when I lived in New Orleans. So lizards have always been part of my whatever it is. Because if you grab them by the tail comes off. And
oh,
yeah, so you have to be very careful to get them between their front legs and their back legs. The
but they
tail,
live if their tail comes off, right? They still live or
they
no?
grow another one, but you're left with just the tail. And then when they get angry, their throats swell up all red and scary. We
So,
had
so what do you equate with lizard? Like, why were you like, oh, like for me, I'd be like, oh, unicorn or peacock or I don't know, white lizard,
I just, I like lizards and they're interesting and I don't know.
They like the sun, right? They sit on rocks. Lizards have a very interesting aspect to them. And when I was doing my sun sign, I'm into astrology. They said like I seem that I'm always busy, but I have periods of kind of inactivity, but things are germinating. And then how a lizard will like spring away,
Oh,
like they
yeah.
generated their nourishment of
Oh, what a wonderful
themselves.
comparison. That's lovely.
So I
Oh,
was wondering if you felt something like that about the lizard.
no, I just remembered them from New Orleans and I had loved them when I was a little girl and I'd catch them.
Wait, so you're in this tattoo parlor and you didn't walk in thinking I'm going to get a lizard, right? Or did you?
no, I knew I wanted a lizard, but they didn't have a lizard. So she had to, make it up on my arm
She drew.
as, yeah, she drew it. And I went with a student at the new school and we were watching a young man having his entire back tattooed with, I can't remember what. And I remember she said, how much do you think this is going to hurt? And I said, I, I don't know. And she said, do you think it hurts as much as having a baby? I said, I don't know. And
You knew.
then she said my favorite thing, do you think it'd be as bad as a really bad farming accident?
Oh my goodness.
Which was my favorite question of all time. And I said, I hope not.
And
Yeah,
how was it on a scale of
it did hurt. It did hurt. With filling it in hurt. There are
and
parts of your body that are This I wanted fuck this shit, but it was too many letters.
Yeah, that's a big lot of, you can't, it takes a hold of the sleeve.
That's a lot. And also my skin is so dry now, you can't even see what the letters are. But I wanted to get another one if I make it to 89.
Okay, all right. So, yeah. And what do you want to get then?
Well, I don't know what I'll want to get then, but right now my motto is, oh, well, because
Oh, just moving on with like whatever is happening. Oh, well.
well, look what's happening. There's nothing we can do about it. Nothing.
And
Oh,
you've lived through a lot of moments in history. You've lived through so many. How many presidents have you lived through?
I haven't paid much attention.
Okay.
I liked a lot, some of them. I hated Reagan. I liked Jimmy Carter. He was a good guy. Couldn't stand the
Bush?
moron.
No.
Yes,
George or his son? Which one?
both of them. I couldn't stand either one of them. God, they were, well,
Both very different. The second one was is a painter, actually. I don't know if you knew that.
an awful lot of people are painters that surprise you.
A lot of celebrities are painters. Like,
Bob
what's up with
Dylan
that?
is
Is it
a
the
painter.
celebrity thing? Is it
I
a
don't know. Maybe they just, I know Bob Dylan is a painter, which is, I, I, I don't know. I mean, there's so many, if you've got all that in you, there's so many different ways to express it. And if you
right?
don't have the tune to the words, you can go paint something. I don't know.
So, do you
Oh,
think because you're a creative person that creative people look at the world or at life differently than people who aren't per se creative or even don't give themselves credit for being creative?
that's a good question. I think human beings born with thumbs, we're
Yes.
supposed to make things. We're supposed to make things separate from ourselves. You know that. I mean, shopping is what is the is what now passes for creative. But it can be anything. It can be cooking, it can be writing, it can be inventing a better mouse. I don't know, but without that feeling that you've made something, of course, a family, but that's different. Anyway, that's,
I think I'm creative in like my parenting, kind of
yeah,
pivoting, doing different things. I think the way that I approach life is kind
yep.
of, I look to try and see how I can be resourceful. And
No, you're one of a kind. You really are. You
oh,
really,
thank you.
everything you do is, I don't know, it's just, you're fun and
I'll
smart,
take that. Oh, yes, I like being fun. Thank you. I'm
smart, and you know yourself, you know?
I think that's part of the age thing, although I don't like to like talk about age. It's just a number. I do believe it's just a
No,
number.
it isn't. It's not just a number. It's old. People get old and it's really fun.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Abby. So much more. And everybody, still life at 80.
Oh, thank you.
Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.